Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming back to the channel. I'm going to go ahead and narrate while I'm painting with this and tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. There's few places where I'm actually um, painting over some cracks that we went back and fixed later, so don't think we just leave stuff like that. Um, if you notice right now, I'm doing something called cross spraying. I didn't really need to do that on this wall because the color on the shadows of the stucco was almost exactly the same color as what I was painting, so you really couldn't see it. But when you have a major color difference, so let's say you're painting a dark brown over a color like what's on these walls here, kind of a light gray color, beige or whatever. If you're painting dark brown over that, then you really need to make sure you cross spray to get that, get those shadows painted in pretty nice. Now, it looks in the video like I'm like really close to the wall, and it also looks like I'm not putting the paint on very heavy. That is not the case. I am actually putting it on very quick, very heavy. I have the pressure set up pretty high. I don't have a pressure gauge on my unit, so I can't tell you how much my pressure was. In fact, I never go by that. It's always by feel. Us older guys, we have painted so long, we don't, having a pressure gauge wouldn't even help me at all because I never set the same pressure every time. I always have it changed for the material I'm using, for the thickness of the material as the day goes on. If it gets hotter, then your material gets thinner, and it gets colder, then your material gets thicker. So you should be constantly knowing how to feel that pressure and know what is the right pressure for the material you're using. So if you do notice, one of the things you do notice when I'm spraying is that you don't see me break my wrist. I'm actually spraying very straight at the wall. I wasn't really very conscientious of anything on this side of the building because there was literally just a little bit of paper down there, and there really wasn't much to get overspray on. So I really wasn't worried about a little bit of dust or anything like that. Like when I'm painting over a roof or something like that, I'll be a little more conscientious about what I'm painting, and I won't break my wrist. Like if you spray straight at the wall the way I'm spraying, there's very little fallout. Fallout is basically the difference. It's either overspray or dust. Okay, fallout. So with the tip I'm using, with the flat tip setup and the material set up the way I had it, not too thin, you're able to actually get a pretty good amount of paint on the wall without really getting any overspray or dust. So again, like I said, I wasn't really conscientious about anything. I was just painting. On this side of the wall, I wasn't thinking about anything. I wouldn't even care. Like I said, so there might be a few mistakes over here where normally, well, again, when I'm doing something that's more important, then I'm a lot more conscientious of what I'm doing. But this is kind of my relaxing wall, just a big open wall with nothing really in the way. There was only 2 windows on that wall, so but it was 28 feet high, so it was a pretty high wall, big wall, a lot of material to put on, and actually putting it on pretty heavy. I'm about 12 inches away from the wall, 10 to 12 inches, somewhere in there, and it looks like I'm a lot closer than that, but that's about what I was. So, and I'm switching from left hand to right hand to get my hand a break, stuff like that, and I'm actually overlapping about 50%, even though it looks like it's less than that. So it does look like it's less than that when you're watching the video. I can barely see it because it's a really small screen where I'm editing, so I'm not doing it on the computer. I do this on my phone. A lot of my editing I do there because it's easier, faster. That's the main reason. I don't have a lot of time to edit videos, so. But if it does help, I figure it helps trade, helps other people learn. So I'm trying to do more edited videos. Right up here, you notice there's some cracks. I just painted right over them. And again, we went back and caulked the cracks. If you look around the bottom of the window, I don't know if it's anywhere in this video, but you really can't see where we caulked the cracks. We used caulking, and I wiped them really tight as I showed in the how to fix cracks video, and there's really no sign of those cracks. You can't even see them at all. If you use caulking, you wipe it really tight. Sometimes we use a brush. So like I'll take a stiff brush and water and dunk the brush in water. You know, wipe the caulking once with your finger. So you just kind of push it in there, and then I'll go take stiff brush with water and then kind of brush off the excess with the water, and that also works as well. But you need to make sure that it's down really tight, and then I also still wipe it with a rag to make sure it's down really tight. You don't want that caulking to mound or fill or bridge anything, because that will just show up really bad. It doesn't look good. So I don't like those cracks when you see them. And then because it's caulking, it actually, you know, the caulking actually, you know, will flex a bit, you know, and expand and contract a bit with the crack. There's that big crack right there. We went back and fixed it later. Yeah. So anyway, just putting on the paint, you know, main thing, you know, the reason I don't stop and fix a crack like that is because, you know, again, I had guys there that were laborers and they do that sort of thing, and I want to make sure they had work to do. You know, Junior there, he's a good painter, but he's a little, you know, he's a little on the slow side. You know, he's not real fast painter, and he stops a lot, you know, but he's still learning. You know, he's actually got a really good brush control and stuff like that. You know, wish I could get him to work a little bit harder. Maybe he'll listen to this, and maybe he'll work a little harder. You know, be more consistent. You know, at his age, I was a little bit, you know, more proactive in getting work done. But you know, he's a really good guy. I like him. He's a good employee. He shows up, does a good job. You know, conscientious about, you know, cleaning up, make sure everything looks good. You know, so those things are really good. You know, everybody has their downsides, right? So. But yeah, it looks like I'm just really light coating this wall, but I'm actually putting it on very heavy. You know, I couldn't put it on really any heavier than that, but you just really can't, the video doesn't really give it justice at all. So it's weird. You know, I saw that when somebody commented something like that, oh, you're just putting on 1 mil of paint. And it's like, no, dude, I think I put on a little more than that. I put it on pretty heavy. So again, we don't water the paint down much, just enough to make it spray a little bit better. You know, half a gallon of water to a 5 or something like that usually is about typical, and especially with a tint base. So like if you're painting and you get a color that's a stock color, let's say you're at Vista Paint and you get white shadow and it's already mixed to white shadow, and you buy it, you know, it's already done. A lot of times that paint, when you open the can, is a little bit thinner than the stuff that's tint based, and it's because they make the tint base to add tint, and when you add tint, the tint doesn't really have any, it's almost like adding water to it. And so when you have a can of paint, let's say you have a tint base, and you know there's a few inches at the top of that 5, there's a few inches at the top of the 5, and you know that paint's made a little bit thicker to make up for that tint, and you should, you know, it's a good idea to add a little bit of water to the paint to make it go through your spray a little bit nicer. It just depends on what you want to do, you know, how you want to do it, whatever. But anyway, you know, that's just a little bit about, you know, why that's done that way. We're not trying to cheat, put on cheap thin coats of paint. It actually, if the paint's a little too thick, a lot of times it doesn't stick as well, you know, because it doesn't get a chance to soak into that substrate, especially on the raw stucco. You want it to kind of soak in a little bit to that substrate and then bite really good. So you don't want it to lay on the surface and dry. You want it to kind of get in there and kind of adhere. So sometimes a little bit of water and paint can help it do that. Also can make it easier to work with, mostly for like trim and stuff like that. Just a little bit, you know, not go crazy with it. I'm talking about, you guys put 2.5 gallons of water in a 5, that's not good. So the kind of paint I use on stucco typically is 100% acrylic. You know, there's a lot of different grades of acrylics and stuff like that too. You know, a lot of you guys go, oh, acrylic's acrylic, acrylic is acrylic. No, it's not true. There's different grades of acrylic. There's different formulas of acrylics. You know, like if you go to like, trying to think, Speed Coat from Glidden, I think, or one of those companies, and you get that cheap 100% acrylic from them. That paint fades like really fast. I mean, it'll fade out in a couple of years, especially if you have like a light yellow or something like that. And you know, it'll really fade fast because the acrylics don't, have the same formula as the stuff you get like from Vista, where you use Acrobond or Dunn Edwards. What's it called? Sparta Shield Flat. I think Sparta Shield Flat that's their 100% acrylic. They've changed the name so many times. I can't remember what it is all the time because I don't buy their paint all the time. But they have another product, let's say Dunn Edwards, where they have vinyl acrylic. It's called, it used to be years ago, it was called Pro Coat Plus, and now it's called Sparta Shield VA, and it's very similar formulated. And the problem with the vinyl paints, and there's some good things to vinyl. Vinyl can have better hide as far as, let's say if you're painting something that has, you're painting something that has like they've got, I don't know, trying to think of how to explain it. It's like they've got part of the paint where it's got something that's painted over, and then part of it's not painted and it's raw. And if you paint like two things together right next to each other, you'll see a line from the old where the part was painted and the part that wasn't painted. It'll hide better because it goes into a deader flat. A lot of those do. But then some of the acrylic paints, like Vista's Acrobond, goes dead flat pretty much, and it's still a good grade of acrylic. That's why I kind of like their formula. They have a good, it goes dead flat, but it also has a good acrylic to where in 5 or 10 years, if you get a cheaper vinyl paint, and this is why a lot of people will say, don't paint stucco. You ever heard guys say that? They say, don't paint stucco because it doesn't last and all this stuff. Because with the old paints, back in the old days, when they had old vinyl paint, they used to, it would turn to chalk on the surface. And the next time you go to paint it, then, they paint over the chalk and not remove all the chalk and prime. You have to remove, when you have chalking on the wall. In other words, you wipe your hand on the wall before you paint it, and you get, chalk on your hand, like wiping on a chalkboard. That needs to be removed, and it should be primed before you paint it. So when somebody uses a really, really cheap vinyl paint, like they used to have those ones at Home Depot, like Conco Pro, anybody remember that one? A long time ago, they had Conco Pro at Home Depot. It was like $30 a 5 or something like that. And, you go to paint it after 10 years of that guy, having that on there, and that stuff you'd wipe your hand on the wall, after it was 10 years old or 15 years old or something like that, and you could just wipe that chalk onto your hand, and then guys will just paint right over that, and then that's going to fail sooner. And then they say, oh, well, it's the stucco. That's nothing to do with the stucco. It had to do with the material that was used the time before. They compromised material once, and everybody from there on, has to pay the price for that. But anyway, back to the paint. The Dunn Edwards has a good material. That Sparta Shield Flat is a 100% acrylic, and same with Vista's Acrobond. In 10 years, 15 years later, I've even seen 20 years in some instances, I've wiped my hand on the wall and there's no chalking. So that was a vinyl issue that they had, the early vinyl paints. And Dunn Edwards used to have that Vinyl Tex. It was good paint. It was really good painted. And the good things about chalk paints is, they don't peel. But the problem with chalk paints is, or vinyl paints, is the next time you go to paint it, if you paint it over that chalk, it's probably not going to adhere, and you're going to have issues from there on out. So there's good and bad to it. There's good things about vinyl paint. There's things that aren't that great about it. Back years ago, we used to use it a lot. Now most paint stores don't sell 100% vinyl. Usually they sell a vinyl acrylic, and the vinyl acrylics aren't too bad because they have acrylics in them, and the acrylics keep the vinyl from chalking. So if you have, except when you add too much water. So you'll see these guys, they buy the Dunn Edwards Sparta Shield VA vinyl acrylic, and it's really thick in the can. I get this all the time. My next door neighbor had these cheap guys paint his house. It was a realtor kind of guy. I mean, I knew the material they were using, and they added 2 gallons of water to a 5. That Sparta Shield VA will still cover with 2 gallons of water to a 5. It'll still cover pretty good, and it'll look good when you're done. And then what happens is the acrylic that's in it separates from the vinyl, and it's not able to actually bind together because they put so much water in it. And basically what happens is you become almost like 100% vinyl, and in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever, it depends on how much water they put in it and how light they put it on, it starts to just weather away. And then people go, oh, well, it's the stucco. The stucco is the problem. No, it's the material. It's the material and the guys who put it on. So let's give you another example. Same material. Let's say you used Dunn Edwards vinyl acrylic, which is their Sparta Shield VA. Not a bad material. It's actually good material. But the problem is, like I said, guys use it the wrong way. They add too much water to it because it's tempting. I mean, you can still cover really good, and you can make it look good. It just doesn't last. And they put it on with too much water. But if you put the same material on with basically straight out of the can, let's say you put in a half a gallon of water to a 5 just to kind of thin it down a little bit, and you put in a really nice heavy coat of that material, shoot, it could last just as long, almost as long as about the same as the 100% acrylic. And it actually lasts pretty good. So on commercial buildings, a lot of times I use that because it's dead flat and it goes on nice and dead flat. But I do it the right way. So that's the thing. There's a lot of painters out there. There's a lot of ways to cheat in this business. And that's why I tell people, look, when you get an estimate, and you get 3 estimates from guys. What you want to do is you get 3 estimates from people you trust. Let's say you got a guy who comes over and you think, this guy's shady. I just don't trust him. And he gives you a great price. You shouldn't even look at that estimate. You shouldn't even look at the price. You shouldn't even look at it. It's just gonna taint your mind. It's gonna make you think that you're getting something that you're not. And what happens is guys go with those cheap prices, and they look at the price. They don't estimate people. They estimate prices, and that's the biggest mistake of hiring a contractor ever for anything, any trade, any because you're having somebody do work on your house, and you need to be able to trust that person to do the job that you want them to do. Whether it's the cheapest job or the best job or whatever, they need to convey that to that needs to happen for you, for whatever you want. So anyway, that's, like I said, I get that all the time. I get people go out, I go estimate, I go out, I can just tell the person, I talk to them after a few minutes, I go, this person's just going cheap. They're going cheap, and because they're comparing prices, they're not even looking at people doing work. And a lot of times I won't even bid it. I'll just walk away. I'll just go, no, I'm not interested, thanks. And they're like, how do you, I just know. I mean, after, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and now it's been 30 some odd years. But after 20 years of doing estimates, I got to the point where I would know which customer I was going to get the job because they were interviewing people and not prices. And I would just know right away, okay, I'm going to get this one because I'm going to give them a fair price. I'm going to be in the middle, and I'm going to, and I know that they'll trust me to do the job right. So, because I talk when I know what I'm doing, and I was explaining it to them what they need, and I didn't tell them what they wanted to hear. Other guys would do that, they go in and tell them, oh yeah, it's going to last for a year. All this stuff's going to work perfect. There's going to be no issues ever. It's like when somebody says that, it should be red flags just jump out at you. You should just know. Somebody who wants to tell you the truth, that's what you want, not what you want to hear. You got to watch out for those people. Because that's what happens a lot of times. So anyway, I was just walking around the other side. I forget what I was doing. I stopped for a minute. I was getting checking on him with those cracks. He was going to get on them and walk around the house a little bit, show you guys what's happening. But anyway, that's just a little bit about, spraying stucco, a little bit about materials, about things like that that might help you guys figure out why. Have you ever seen anybody who's painted stucco enamel? I mean, some guys do it, and I'm going to tell you, that's really not doing justice to the wall. I always use 100% acrylic flat on walls, because I'll tell you why. The 100% acrylic flat is, again, it's got the acrylics in it. It's going to make it not turn to chalk, and it still allows the wall to breathe. So let's say moisture gets in that wall somehow. The moisture is going to be able to release from the wall. So when people put enamel, which is, semi-gloss, satin, anything with a sheen to it is enamel, okay? And flat is flat, okay? So anything with a sheen to it, enamel on a wall, on stucco, is not good for the stucco, because what happens is if moisture gets in behind there, you can constantly, from there out, moisture gets in there, it'll seal it up, and then what happens is the water can't escape and it'll peel. It has nothing else to do. So two things I like to use 100% acrylic flat on is rough sawn wood. So the wood that's on this house is a rough sawn wood, if you've seen the trim on it, and on stucco. So if somebody tells me, hey, they want enamel on their stucco, I just tell them, no, I'm not interested in doing the job, thanks. And, people go, what? You lose the work? I want to make sure I do it right. And I tell them why. I tell them, hey, look, what you put on, well, I want something that'll wash off. Well, paint, even flat paint, will wash off really good if you use 100% acrylic. And when it stops washing, that's when you need to paint it again. And that's part of the contractor's license test. I mean, that's on the test, if you guys know that one. When's the best time to repaint a house is when you wash it and it won't get clean. And, because what's happening is the binder is wearing away on the surface, and that's kind of giving you the indication that that binder is compromised, and it's the best time to go ahead and repaint it and reprotect it at that point. Waiting till it's peeling to paint a house is way too long. You never want to wait till a house peels. Wait till it washes, it doesn't get clean. That's when you would normally paint a house. So, and if you use enamel, it'll do the same thing. I mean, after the enamel starts to lose the binder starts to wear out, once the binder wears off, then what happens is the colorants are exposed to the elements, and when the colorants are exposed to the elements, they fade, and then what happens is, then eventually what happens is it really gets badly compromised, and it starts to potentially peel or chalk, one of the two, depending on the material you're using. And, that's how paint fails. So painting it when it just doesn't go clean again is the best time to repaint. And again, that's all stuff. If you just watch the videos that I have, you could probably learn to pass a contractor's license test in California, by just learning the lingo that I talk about in the videos, because I've been doing this a long time. And I have companies that hire me to go in and fix issues, and that's what I do, a lot of times, is to fix problems that reoccur and they, need it to go away. What I tell people is, look, it's like this, when they hire me, is they need aces. They need a stacked deck. They don't need, a gamble to get out and have a person do the job. They need me to go out, do the job, have the problem go away, customer's happy, everything's good. And, when you get really good at painting, you should know all of these things. When you're a master at the trade, someday, a lot of you guys, I know a lot of you guys are masters of the trade. I know I've seen comments. I know which ones you guys are masters. Some of you guys are still learning, and that's cool. Everybody's at their place. And when you're a master of the trade, why everything happens. When stuff fails, when, what to do, when you're ordering equipment, you know, how high it needs to reach. You can look at the wall and measure it off and know how high it is roughly. And you'll know what type of equipment you need to get in a certain area of a commercial building maybe. You know, there's narrow lifts that will fit through this door. You know, different things like that. I'm just trying to explain some of the stuff about issues about materials, things that which materials will last longer on a substrate. You know, you get to that point where you can look at stuff and you know, I know materials that some painters have never even used. You know, I can go to a guy and I say, hey, you know, we're using Matthews material on this because it's metallic silver, and I go, what? You know, what's that? You know, it's sign industry specialty paint, you know, or something. We're going to use a roll additive with a metallic. You know, there's those type of things. People don't even know how to use them. There's so much stuff, you know, in this trade that you can learn, and I could never teach everything that I learned on this YouTube channel, never, because there's just too much stuff. I've just got too many years and, you know, too many different materials. I started out in automotive, so I know a lot of automotive stuff, you know, and then I got into doing buildings, you know, stuff like that. Because of course, you know, automotive business is just, it sucks. You know, I know a few guys making a lot of money, but there's, you know, a lot more people. You can make a lot more money in doing buildings than you can in automotive, and you're just dealing with little tiny stupid little things like, you know, you're dealing with like a little tiny nick in, you know, in a hood or something. The guy takes the car home. He never looks at it again, but he wants you to make sure that that little spot is fixed or something, you know, whatever. It's just so crazy, that whole business. That's why I got out of it. It's just, you know, to me, it was just no way you're ever gonna make, you know, good money doing that. I couldn't make near what I make doing, you know, building painting. You know, no way, not even close. And I know guys make $100,000 a year or more, you know, doing automotive. You know, I know a couple guys that make over 150, and you could do you could probably do 10 times that easy in the building trades business. So, you know, you max out at like $150,000 a year as a car painter. You could easily do 150,000 or more, maybe make, you know, 300 to 500, 600. I used to work for a guy who made about $4 million a year with 20 guys, you know, and that's unheard of with 20 guys, by the way, guys. If you don't, you know, nobody does that. So these are the guys I learned a lot of this stuff from, you know, and, you know, I was fortunate enough to make the cut, you know, when we were working on stores and they had 60, 70 guys we went through. I mean, I was like, man, just keep this guy another week, man. Just keep him another week. Because what would happen is they'd fire him, and then all the load would go on to us. So it was just like, just keep this guy. I know he's only putting on 6 gallons a day, but man, you know, that's 6 less than I got to put on. So, you know, and we're doing, you know, 15, 16 gallons a day, you know, and this guy's doing 6, but I was just glad he was putting on that 6, you know. I was happy because we're rolling, you know. That was inside stores and stuff, you know. Then we switched over and started spraying. We weren't supposed to, and we started spraying anyway, and managers, they were like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. You don't even get dust in the store, you know. Inside a building, you know, you're not getting any, inside a, you know, retail establishment spraying, and we're not getting any dust on the merchandise. Nothing. So, and that's because of a lot of the technique and stuff that I'm using in these videos I'm showing you guys. And I still get, you know, tons of people who tell me that, you know, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, great. Good information, dude. You know, I guess you're making more than $1 million a year. That's what I say to them. Oh, what? What do you mean making $1 million? I'm not saying I'm making $1 million. I'm just saying that the guys I learned from were making $4 million a year. $4 million with 20 guys back in the 80s. I mean, that's crazy money. You know, that's like, you know, Tell me another guy who's doing that even now. Not many guys, with 20 guys. Profit. I'm not talking about revenue. I'm talking about profit. So anyway, they're dead now, so I can say that stuff. You know, guys that I worked with that just were amazing guys. I mean, these guys were the best of the trade. And, you know, I still don't feel like sometimes I'm even as good as they were. But, you know, I'm happy with what I've done, and happy with the, you know, that I'm able to teach some of the stuff to other people. And again, like I said, you know, I don't know everything. There's, you know, I'm still learning new stuff every day. I mean, even from the comments, I've learned about new products and things that I found out, and new products and things come out every day. You don't get to the point where you know everything. You're constantly learning in this business. If you think you know everything, you're really, really green. You don't, you know, if you think, hey, I know everything about this, there's nothing else I'm ever going to learn. You know what? You don't know anything. That's the way I feel about it, because there's new stuff coming out every day. How can you know everything about the trade? There's just no way. You can't know everything. You know, it's just, I'm like I said, I'm constantly learning stuff new every day, and I'm getting better, and you know, at different things, and you know, but I do know a lot. There's tons and tons of materials and tons of stuff that I've used that 99% of the painters have never used or even know about. You know, so I know I'm definitely got, you know, an edge in as far as a lot of things go. But you know, like I said, I'm not. You know, I've definitely mastered the trade, but I'm not, you know, the know-it-all of everything. There's nobody is, I don't think, in this trade. You can never learn everything, because there's constantly stuff that's changing, VOC regulations, and you know, all this stuff that's constantly, you know, moving. And there's new lifts that come out. I mean, I just saw a video, or I was driving by, and I was driving down the road, and all of a sudden I see this big, like, I was like, this lift next to this building. I'm like, that has to be at least 100-foot lift, and it's down to, like, it would fit in my garage at my house, and it was narrow enough to where it would drive through a 24-foot opening, 24-inch opening. So it would go through a really narrow opening, and it was 90 feet high. Never seen one. You know, this is new equipment, and it's made by Ruthman, who is, I'm restoring an old bucket truck on my other YouTube channel, and it's an old 1962 Volkswagen bucket truck, Volkswagen single cab bucket truck, and Ruthman makes some really badass stuff. I mean, cutting edge. I mean, a 90-foot boom that's electric powered, that's, you can actually, you know, you can't drive it like when it's extended, but it drives itself. It's electric powered. It has, you know, skidless wheels on it, you know, the white wheels, and it's called if you want to look it up, it's called a Falcon something 90, FS90, I think. And they actually have a 140-foot one that's similar to it. And it's only 16 feet long, I think, the length, and it's less than 24 inches wide. It'll fit through a 24-inch wide opening, and it spiders out. You push a button and it spiders out. It has the outriggers come out and they spider out, and then it'll have a 90-foot reach, and like an outward reach of, I think, I don't know, 50 feet or 60 feet out. It's crazy. The specs on it are amazing. So, you know, there's stuff coming out all the time. There's no way you can, you know everything. There's no way. If you're doing everything exactly the same on every job, then you're just learning. You need to learn a lot more, because there's times when you need to look at the job and figure out, you know, hey, I could do this way, and it'll save me 2 hours. You need to know when those things can happen. And, you know, most of the things, you know, in a house, most of the time you're going to do this the same way. You're usually going to do the stucco first. You're going to do the trim, you know, the eaves second. And then you're going to trim out everything, or you can do that in any combination of those things. Sometimes you do your trim and then you do your eaves. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying that's normally how most people are going to do a house. I mean, because if you spray the eaves first and you try to do the stucco, you're going to get stucco paint on your eaves. And I've had times where you had to do it that way, but usually it's slower. So anyway, but that's, most things are going to do the same like that. But there's going to be times when, you know, you need to look at the substrate. Like on this one here, decided to do the pop outs first. And like I said, because when you angle your gun to catch those edges of the pop outs, it's hard not to get, you have to use a shield around it and all this stuff to not get paint, a little bit of overspray on the stucco. You know, you have to use a shield all the way around the edge and hold it to make sure you catch all the overspray. And, you know, it just was easier to actually do them first on this house. Anyway, that's just a little bit more about spraying. I figured I'd just make it a narration with the video to kind of, so you guys could learn some stuff while you're watching. Anyway, I'll talk to you in the next video. We'll just go ahead and finish this one out right here. Talk to the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe. See your comments, see what you guys have to say. And good luck with your next project.